here. Good morning, Tom. And we'll call the, let's see, roll call, Jim Bell here, Eddie here, Paul Foley here, Mike Morrow, I think he's gonna call in. Penny here, Walter here, Paul Tully here. Michael Chad, you out there? And then non-voting members, I see Stewart, Turrentine, Chief Krolikowski, Jonathan Federico, Andrew Walsh, Maria Copeland, Brian Hughes, and I guess Gina will be calling in as well, right?
Yeah, Gene's calling in.
All right, so Gina will be calling in a little bit later. Morning, Brian. So were there any public comments?
No public comments.
All right. Has everyone had a chance to see the minutes from last meeting? Yes. Any comments or corrections?
None here.
Bell's name had two L's when it was mentioned in the text.
Okey dokey. All right.
I move we approve the minutes as corrected.
Thank you. Second, Penny, all in favor?
All right.
Okay, well, Gene's gonna be is the next thing on the agenda, but I don't see Gene here yet. Gene? No? Brian, why don't you give us an update, sir? If that's okay.
Yeah, I'll be happy to. We are in design development phase, so we're making progress, not just in our office, but with consultants. We have engaged mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection, site, civil, not civil, site, and structural. So they are all actively looking at the project, and when looking at the project, that might generate plan adjustments just based on what we found and what we've discovered about the existing building or systems that we need to implement into the existing building. We have had on-site meetings with our consultants to review the building, and the police department have been very accommodating to what we need to get in and around the building. I think one of the biggest changes that we can report is we had made some assumptions on the structural systems being the lower level, how it was constructed. And we thought bearing walls were the outside walls of the building, but bearing walls, because of last renovations, are not the exterior walls of the in the back of the building. So it's changed the layout of locker rooms. And I'm not going to go into every detail today just because of time, but we have adjusted the locker room layouts. And in that adjustment, the female locker room has been expanded to 21 lockers and 2 showers. So to accommodate the change in the structural bearing walls, we had to expand the area of the female locker room slightly, and that has resulted in the increased numbers and the increase in the shower. The male locker room, we have redesigned the layout, but we've maintained the same fixture counts and locker counts. It's just a slightly different layout. Other than that, the plan, as you remember it, is primarily the same as was before. The drawings are becoming more developed, so we don't have the colors on them anymore. It's not as easy to read them because we're just adding layers of information. And we probably have 30 drawings, where before you might have seen 3 drawings. So we are getting into a larger set for the purposes of bidding and contractors. We also had a meeting on site with EMS and the EMS administration to talk about some concerns they had with the circulation, the site planning that was put into place. I think that resulted in a good dialogue, and we understood the concerns. The police department were present for that meeting. Also, members of the building committee were at that meeting. And I think what we concluded was we need to make some improvements to circulation. We need to make some improvements to access for volunteers to get from cars to the building. We also talked about the access and the change in circulation pattern. I think the change in pattern was understood to be an improvement, but access on and off the site was discussed, and I think we can continue to look to make some improvements there. We are awaiting the final survey still. We did get a partial survey. We've sent it back for more information, and they're gathering that additional information. So we're kind of waiting until that survey is presented and complete before we can really attack the site issues that were discussed. And I think I think that's just a general overview. If you have any questions, I'm here.
Well, I think it was a very good break, Brian, that one thing had to be changed. There was an expansion on the ladies' locker room, so that's a good break. One for us, one for the whole team.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. I think how complicated it was, we couldn't have done that later.
And
On
Brian,
the pinch point in the northeast corner, I mean, there was a concern of the EMTs, and I think others have voiced that concern, and obviously you're waiting on a more cross the T's, dot the I's of the solution based, waiting on the survey, the
Topic.
yes, the topographical survey. So any other questions for Brian?
yeah, Brian, the space that increased, did that decrease other spaces, or was it more just a rearrangement of the space that you had?
It was a rearrangement. The storage room that was adjacent had an L leg to it before, and now it's just a rectangular space. So if I've lost space, it's out of that storage space.
Okay.
I have a couple of comments. Brian, thanks for having our water receptacle in the background. I appreciate that. And secondly, thanks for adding that female officer in the locker room, because we just hired our 8th female officer the other night. So now we have 8 female officers. So that's a great addition, and thanks for that.
Was there anything new when you did the survey of the utilities, or any potential changes in that regard?
No, what I'm going to get back to Joe on is there's some information when you built the lower parking lot. And when you built the lower parking lots, there was some underground stormwater retention that was added when that lower parking lot was constructed. And I'm going to see if we can get that information on what was installed underground in that lower parking lot. It must be on some drawing somewhere that it needs to make its way to the survey.
I'll see if I can help with that with Joe. That'd be great.
Any other questions for Brian? Thank you, Brian. Gene, you're on. I see you're on.
Yeah, can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
All right. How you guys doing?
Yeah, Gene, you are thank you very much for Slam joining us as our owner's rep. And some of us have worked with Gene before. In fact, the 3 of us here at the table here on the latest Saks renovation worked with Gene in the same capacity as our owner's rep. And obviously he did a great job, which is why we asked him to compete for the job again. This time with the police station, we had, by the way, some excellent firms competing in that regard. We were very, very impressed with all the presentations, and we chose Gene for his good looks in the end, is what happened, I think.
Well, that's kind of what that was my strength I was going for. So thank you.
So, Gene, the floor is yours.
So thank you for the vote of confidence again. Clearly, we're looking forward to working with everybody here on put this thing together. And just a little background about me and the firm for those of you that have not worked with SLAM in the past. SLAM's been around since 1976. We're our roots are here in Glastonbury, Connecticut, and we serve United States. So we have 9 offices, but our main office is here in Connecticut. We started our construction management division 26 years ago, which I have headed ever since. And our main focus is really to establish relationships, build trust and relationship with clients in any capacity that they need us. And this is a great example of using the skills of both the design and the construction side to assist your group in feathering its way through the process of building this very important milestone building for you guys. So our role is to enable, is to really advise and to assist and not to impede. And you have a great architect already on board. Our first charge for us is really to engage a construction manager for you as soon as possible. And one of the ways that we're going to try to do that, and there's probably one of the processes that we need to kind of go through, is decide what's the best way to do that. And if you don't mind, I'm going to share my screen here real quick. If I can figure out how to do that. Let's see. So can you see this?
Not yet.
Not yet.
There it goes.
There we go.
Okay. All right. So one of the first things that I'm working on, and I'm going to share this with you guys as hard copies, but is really to start to establish what we need to do. And there's quite a bit of questions about who's doing what right now. And so, I've gone through the architectural agreement, kind of know where they stand and some of their services they're providing, but there are a couple things that we really need to work out on the owner side. These are things that are not currently included in the architectural agreement that we have to decide whether we're going to engage Jakunski Humes to do some of these things, or independently have us pursue those as a town hire and to engage them and work with Jakunski on some of these things. So I'm gonna this is kind of a work in process. As we develop this, all these boxes will get filled out, so we make sure we haven't missed anything. And there are some key things in here that I guess the first one, has anybody done an environmental study, abatement?
We have.
Okay, good.
We've got an initial environmental study. Yeah, the most important thing on there is the fact design.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have to make sure we're using for the special future. We have, secretly we decided on that already.
Which one was that?
I'm looking at this back.
The fact design. The fact design and installation at the bottom of the chart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, of course, we got to get that right now. I mean, that's probably the top priority.
But the environmental work we've done has been, how, in a scale of 1 to 10, how thorough would you say? I mean, it's sort of more on a cursory perspective. So
Yeah, we did the initial pass based on where we were cutting through the building at that particular time. So it'll have to be refreshed, but we already have someone on board for that. So as you mentioned, this is work in process, and this is just part of the process to get everyone identified. So there's still an initial kickoff meeting that we'll have with Department of Public Works, so we'll be able to populate all these items and give him all the information that he needs so he can do it correctly.
So do we need to get, I forget, which one of who are we using, or who do we use for the initial study? I know it was one of the preeminent firms.
Yeah.
what was their name?
I want to see, it was Fussin' O'Neill.
Yeah,
Fussin' or Ty and Bond, Fussin? I don't know.
Well,
Can we get that report to Gene?
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of data. He just received the contract, so there's a lot of data that we've done over the last 2 years that we'll have a kickoff meeting and put together the overall package.
Yeah, exactly. So this will get populated, and this is just kind of a guide for the committee to just make sure we haven't missed anything, and that we're kind of ahead of Jakunski Humes and making sure that we have the consultants that he needs to engage. I know civil engineering is one thing that is out there, but it's just being worked on right now. I don't know if we need traffic. There's some things in here we just gotta, worked out. So that's kind of the first thing that I've been working on. The second, and I guess more important, is the decision on the construction manager. And one of the questions I would like to pose to you is, what we'd like to do is try to get somebody engaged before the end of January, and on board. We want to get an estimate as soon as possible, just to get a check on the budget. We would do the same thing with our team, so that we can reconcile that and make sure that we're on the right track before we get too far down the road. The process that would normally happen would be a qualification process where we would send out an RFQ out to the universe, and whatever comes in, and we could get a dozen construction managers that apply. We would then shortlist that to 3 or 4, do a RFP with an interview to make sure that the team that they're proposing is a team that we would want to work with. To shorten that up a bit, because I know there's a lot of interest in town already. There are a lot of good construction managers that we're all familiar with, and a lot of names were floated out there when we interviewed. We could circumvent that process and kind of do a combination RFQ, RFP, so that the proposal part can be a separate proposal in a sealed envelope. The qualifications can be abbreviated a bit, so that we go out and basically solicit 3 or 4 people that we want to work with. What do you guys think about that?
That's a good idea. Can we get that out? I'd like to do that and get that out before Christmas, so we get responses by early January.
Yeah, we can advance the that process for you. I think the interviews can happen probably at the first of the year, something like that, if that's what you'd like to. That's the goal here.
That would give us, if the target is to get somebody on board by the end of January, then we can start interviewing and reviewing the first or second week in January and try and get it wrapped up before the end of the month.
Are there 4 people you want to pursue that you want me to reach out to?
I mean, I would want to get everybody's opinion, but I could list 4 terrific
Yeah.
construction managers, and I'm sure you guys know them as well, so we could definitely get a list of.
We'll shoot a list to you and Joe, or Joe will shoot
Okay.
you.
Yeah.
So I'll compile, just if anyone has anyone they want to include, just have them send it to Bill and I, and we can put the list together and send it over to Slam.
Right.
Yeah, try to keep it to 4. 4 would be the max. I would say, if unless you have some strong opinions about it. I think once you get beyond that, it really gets complicated. And so
Are all good, so. That's
yeah, they're
fine.
all good. We are pretty much saying it really should come down to their fee and fee structure, and how they it should come down to their team that they're proposing, and that's really, we want to dial that down into the interview, and then we'll get into some more specifics in the interview about the schedule and the process, and how they work with Brian, and it's some familiarity with Brian, and how his input on the construction managers is important as well, because these are groups that he has to work with every day. We want to make sure that he's comfortable with it as well.
In our last experience, the construction manager's estimating person was so good that it probably ensured that we had got the project in under budget, because the detailed knowledge of their estimating people was just vital to getting this done correctly.
So logistically, just thinking out loud, if our next regularly scheduled meeting is second week in January, we obviously should make some decisions now, whether that's to create a subgroup that will recommend the 3 to 4 construction managers that we will approach and invite to bid. Yes, I mean, we could do that now. And that probably should be a vote, I would think.
I would also think that we're probably, if we want to get this in place by the end of January, we're going to have a special meeting about the 3rd or 4th week in January.
Yes.
Well, we should set up an interview date. I can map out a quick schedule for the timing of everything, so that we have the RFP, RFQ due date. We'll put a shortlist date, which should be a meeting or a Zoom meeting that we do a QBS scoring to get to the to the shortlist a person, and maybe we shortlist. If you want, we can interview all four clearly, but if you want a shortlist from there, we could do that as well. And then set up an interview date and then a selection date.
That's what we should do.
So
So,
you think we need to vote as a committee on who we're gonna shortlist or just delegate that to a subset?
You can definitely, you can just delegate it.
But they'll delegate, but I want the minutes to be clear that this is what we decided. Unless.
Yeah,
they
you may
were-
not want a shortlist. I mean, maybe just, again, interview all four. If they're all four highly qualified and you want to see their teams, then that's perfectly acceptable.
But you, Penny, me and Joe.
Yeah, is that Paul Tully or anyone else out there would like to be part of that group?
No, I think you have more current knowledge than I have on that, so I would accept your thoughts and opinions on that. I'd like to see the list though before it's published out there. You know, why don't you come up with the list and then circulate it internally, and then we can go from there. How's that sound?
Yeah. Paul Tully, do you have any comments?
No, I'd like to be a part of that committee, for sure.
Thank you. Appreciate
I
that.
think that Paul will have a lot more input than this one, so I agree with Paul.
Just be also prepared for the influx of phone calls and why can't I get put on the list and can I be included? There's gonna be a lot of pressure for it's gonna be easy to come up with, but there's probably 8 that are gonna be banging on your door.
Well, that brings up to a point about going in the other direction and actually putting out a RFQ. That way, you can't be questioned later.
He's gonna send it to a big list. We're gonna shortlist it down to 4 after we get, after we get the responses.
No, I thought we
No.
were,
The
We were-
process was to circumvent that, yeah, is to go select 4 and put out a combination RFQ, RFP.
So the flip side of that would be, well, let's put it this way, is there, how much time would it take if we actually put out an RFQ? And I'm just thinking of minimizing or maximum regret, right? That everyone is invited, that and then we decide from there. And not people coming back later in the process.
if you do it in a 2-step process, you really need, 4 weeks for the first process, and another 4 weeks for the second process.
Yeah.
Which I don't necessarily think is, I know everyone was really pushing to get a CM on board. I think with Gene and my expertise and the rest of the committee's expertise, that it doesn't matter if it goes into February. I'd rather, if you put something out to bid, like half of the staff from most of these firms is going to be gone over Christmas time and right before Christmas. So you really have to look at days of actual quality staff,
Yeah.
as availability to put these things together.
So-
They're not gonna-
we should, whatever we even when we haven't shortlisted, we've always gone with an RFQ with sealed proposal. We've always made it one step.
Mhm.
So I would make it one step, whether we go to a short list or go out there. I mean,
Right.
Gene, couldn't we do that?
Yeah, the idea of having the sealed proposal allows us to collect all of the CMs and then shortlist from there. And then what we did last time is then we went to an interview, scored the interview, and then opened up the fee envelope and add that as a weighted factor towards the total points. If we decide to go with an RFPQ combination and opening it up to anybody, then we just need to set a criteria for shortlist. That's all.
This is professional services, so we don't have to put this out for a full, we can do a list. Listen, instead of 4, why don't we do a list of 6 and just do 1 pass?
Is 6 too many? I mean,
I wouldn't interview 6. If the intent is to go 6 and shortlist to 3 or 4, I would think that's sort of.
Right.
That's what I had in mind.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I would think that's fair. And this way it eliminates that potential buggy phone call.
Professional services, so there's no.
We sort of know who's done great work in town, the various projects that we want to.
Yeah.
go to, and then I'm sure.
Well, that's the other thing, is as long as people have a real opportunity, I definitely don't want to send it to someone that we basically could tell by looking at their website that they're not gonna beat out the top three that we already say. It's like, what's the point of leading them through?
Why don't we go, so this is not for a vote, but why don't we go with the 6 shortlist for RFQs and then shortlist that down to 3, which we interviewed in January.
So we'll invite 6 firms, interview 3. With a hybrid,
3 or 4.
3 or 4, depending on what we say.
with a RFP or an RFQ/RFP format, similar to what we just did with Bill.
Exactly, with the
Separate deals.
the DOP.
Yeah.
We're all in agreement on that?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. It's like a 6 to 4. Interview, have 6 and then 4 and then take it from there. Right?
Yeah, you had the choice to go 3 or 4 at that point.
Yeah, I think we can.
Correct.
That works.
All right, Gene's okay, Joe, you're okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I will get working on that. I've already started the RFQ. So I'll just now combine it with the RFP. What I'll do is in the next day or 2, I'll send out a schedule of what the process will look like, so we can get on calendars for everybody and make sure that it fits in with, the due dates and the interview dates and the selection dates. And we can work those around your committee
I heard
meetings.
Joe, if it goes to the first week in February, first, second week of February, it's not the end of the world, right?
One thing that is related to this, because it's gonna come up during year approvals, when we're moving into the heavy phase of this project, we're out of the investigative phase. I would propose that we schedule two regular meetings a month.
Oh, right.
And so that, and if we need one, it's on the calendar, but we can always cancel this, if there's no need for it.
The only downside to that is people have to block out two different time slots. The good news is, I think all of our meetings are probably going to be hybrid going forward. So people can call in and if we're consistent with the Thursday at 8, let's say, we do, second Thursday, fourth Thursday, something like that. And then, we'll use them if we need them, and we'll give people, I think, a week and a half notice so they can clear up, whether we're gonna be using that meeting or not.
As we move through the process, what's gonna happen is that we're gonna need to vote on different things, maybe more than once a month, and they'll give us the ability to do it easily.
Yeah.
And if we don't need it, we can cancel.
Right, the last thing we want is logistics of the building committee getting in the way of progress. I think that's the lesson.
Right.
Agreed. Okay, that's good.
Are you guys all cool with that?
Yes.
So we're gonna do the second
Second and fourth.
second, fourth, Friday.
Yes,
Second, fourth, Thursday.
Thursday, 8 o'clock, still good for people?
Oh,
Yeah, that's about. Yes.
Gene, is there anything else?
No, those are the 2 things I wanted to get worked out today. So I have my marching orders for the month.
I love that responsibility matrix, by the way, that, I mean, as a visual person, that certainly helps me a great deal, so. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll circulate this too. Obviously, Brian, I want you to take a look at it as well, so that, if there's something that we're missing in here, and make sure that, we pick up a particular trade. Yeah, there's some odd things in here. I know you had a keying consultant as well. How does that play in with a security consultant? Is that something that's been considered as well?
We're gonna act as a security consultant for this.
Okay.
And we do have a hardware consultant. We would be working with the owner to determine keying, but we'll have a hardware consultant do all the hardware specs.
Okay.
And I assume Brian and the police department will, take the lead on that. The last thing they need is people that are not in that business looking over the shoulder, so.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. Okay, thank you.
And we're also doing civil keying,
Civil, all right.
civil engineering.
Good. Yep, I had a question on that one.
And getting back to the northeast corner, left-hand turn, pinch point, it should also be stated that parking is an issue in parking spaces. We've already made a bit of a compromise based on, the work that Stuart did a few years ago about the number of spaces required, and we want to make sure that the solution for the pinch point doesn't take, 6 parking spaces, what have you, that, anything we can do to make, to keep as many spaces as possible is important.
That's obviously the goal. What Brian is gonna do is, when we get the survey, is gonna to look at the parking on the north boundary in 2 regards. One is, more parallel parking and less or no head-in parking, and then a no parking scenario. And we'll test that with EMS on the turning radius and the ability of their vehicles.
And
Like I said, stated is, for all interested parties here, we'd love to see the names that they would like to consider as construction managers. I mean, it's not just us. I mean, so any names that you would like the committee to consider, please forward to Joe and me. Right?
Bill, with regards to parking, I think Jim had volunteered to start to explore off-site parking for some of the non-mission critical vehicles, like various trailers and vehicles of that kind. Have we made any progress on that front?
I haven't heard it.
It's either just at the end or to the chief.
Yeah, I don't think we made any formal progress. I think we've identified probably the only location is at the highway department for that kind of storage. So we need to kind of get together with Tiger and nail that down.
We don't have, Leon, we don't have the room.
No
We're not gonna
room?
be able to accommodate. No, we don't.
Okay.
Not at present, I think we got to look. I don't think the default can always be the highway department. Sorry, but we have to look elsewhere.
So one of the things I would say is we should work on that pretty promptly, because when we identify where we're gonna put the vehicles, if there's any additional work or fees or P&Z work or anything that has to go into it, we certainly want to include that money in our budget. So I think that those meetings, something has to be paved, or if there's security issues, it's something we need to add where we're going to move these vehicles. We want to know this in the next, couple of months, so that we can add those costs into our project. So this would be something we should thrash out.
Leon, Andrew, is it not correct, or is it correct that we need kind of 2 categories? We need an impound place for wrecks and things that are being held for evidence, and then we may need an additional space for regular utility vehicles. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, I think that's accurate. I'll get together with Andrew and he'll nail it down, specifically the needs. We'll put like a needs list together, and then we'll plot out various locations in town that are possibilities. Unfortunately, Tiger said the highway department's out, which seems to be the largest space, but we'll take a look at throughout town and see what's possible. And I think we also need to think not only near term when we do move out of our current facility and we're going to need a space to put various vehicles, but longer term, once we actually move back in our building and figure out what's the need after that. And I think there's still a need there because of the space restrictions on our site and parking, et cetera. We can't have 5 or 6 vehicles that are wrecks that we can't get rid of on site that are taking up space like that. So even though we're going to have an abundance of interior storage, more so than we have now, we still need to plan for that. So I think that's a 2-part analysis.
All right, so you're on that, Leon. I question, do communities ever share that? Now, for vehicles, you need access to immediately, let's say, specialty vehicles. That's one thing, you want them close by. But, for a lot of these wrecks that are being saved for evidence, is that the kind of a thing that a couple of towns would say here? We can put them all over here. We don't need access to them on a weekly basis, and do that maybe where places where there's more land and it's cheaper. Is that
Do other communities do that, you know?
I think that's a good point. We need, there's various categories of vehicles. We have some that, although they are outside and being stored here, are actually evidentiary, so those need to be keep track of better and more carefully than others, which are simply vehicles that we can't locate the owner, they've been impounded, and we need to get rid of them at some point, that are, the evidentiary value is limited. So part of that, frankly, of our move out strategy is to see how many of those vehicles we can get rid of, so we don't have to retain them. But historically, we see, several vehicles a year that we need to store like that. So we'll plan for that. We'll figure that out.
Leon, does the evidentiary vehicles, do they need to be like in a secure space with cameras and stuff like that?
It depends on the category. If it's a really significant vehicle, for example, just involved in a bank robbery or some other serious felony, we would keep it in our interior space within the building. But then there's a secondary category where we've processed the vehicle, it's awaiting a court hearing or something like that, or adjudication, and we still need to retain it, but it doesn't need to be interior space, but it should be somewhere where it's more secure. And then, like I said, there's probably a third category that kind of doesn't matter where it is, as long as it's somewhat secure. So I think there's a lot of possibilities. We'll sketch all that out and figure it out, though.
Yeah, I was just wondering if it's not a heck of a lot of space, and if it can be done in a way that's not unattractive. I wonder if you could steal a little space over by the mulch area, Just-
Yeah, that's a possibility, maybe hidden somewhere.
Just, and again, I think one of the challenges with all this stuff is, and, the evidentiary stuff is obviously, nothing we can do about that, but, if you have space, sometimes you store more than you need, so we get kind of that balance of like, just because we can put it away and ignore it, then it just sits there forever, kind of like closets in my house.
Yeah.
So I
Like
think
a
we need, so if we keep the space, on the one hand, you want to have the space, on the other hand, you want to have some discipline, not too much space, so we don't, out of sight, out of mind. So.
Yeah, that's a fair point. That's human nature, I think.
And then, Leon, there's also a third category, which are all the vehicles that are not considered first responder vehicles, but still need to be, stored someplace. And I'm thinking in there in terms of various trailers, EMS trailer, with the ATV in it, we've got shelter trailer, we've got animal trailer, we've got cert trailer, we've got the all-terrain vehicle that we inherited from the Army, et cetera, those kinds of things.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. We'll inventory that and categorize them, and then take a look at possible locations.
Yeah, and possible divestment if we don't need it. I mean, just because they gave us something doesn't mean we need it.
Right.
An opportunity for the police to bring in a dumpster and get rid of a lot of stuff, right?
Tiger, is there any space over in the barn at Irwin? Oh, maybe it's not there.
The barn is full. The barn's full. So is the garage. Remember, we knocked down the Richmond Hill garage, which was full, right? So that garage was full of materials. So the barn is full. That has parts materials in it, and then the garages are full over by Irwin. That houses our central storage for all of our buildings, be it toilet paper to paper towels to what have you, copy paper, things of that nature. So that's full as well.
So for these old rusted cars, I think we should go to the government, get some federal grant, bring in an artist and have them turn them into sculptures. And we'll put these rusted out cars throughout the lawn of Waverly and Irwin Park. And we'll be heroes in town, I'm sure.
I would suggest, with everyone's long schedule stuff to do, January is always a good time to clean stuff out. Stuff can be full, but should it be? So.
No, Bill, if Leon is the one who's giving us an accurate count of the classification of vehicles, and we still have to have somebody who's owns the responsibility of finding a space in town. And what are you suggesting along those fronts?
Leon, do you want, how involved do you want the building committee to be? We're here if we can help you. If it's more, if we're not gonna be a help, then I'm willing to step aside here. What do you think?
I don't think this is a long reach. I think we'll figure it out. And if we need a backup, we will call you, but I think we'll figure it out.
Sounds like a good
Okay.
plan.
Yep,
Let's go with that.
yep. Thank you, sir. Is there,
So Stuart, you had a list that we went through in the programming portion of this design. Can you share that with Leon so that he can refresh it?
Sadly, my list was not related to the vehicles, it was related to the buildings. So
I think- Okay, so we have one somewhere though, that was created, maybe Brian created it, I don't remember who did
yeah,
it.
but I remember seeing
There's
it.
a list, I'll find it.
Okay,
Anything else with Gene or Brian?
Yeah, where are we on the training facility?
I've heard nothing, Paul.
Okay, sort of another month has gone by, guys, with nothing.
No, a month with nothing, we have, the, surveyor is working on the second location to
Okay.
identify what ones are the boundaries, and then, Brian, has been, brought on board, or actually, once he brought on board, he has generously volunteered to do test fits for at least the first one, which he's produced, and then a second test fit will be coming shortly.
So I guess we're sharpening the pencil on potential sites in town that could be brought forward. We're just trying to get a little more facts really before we go forward to try to.
Perform due diligence on your properties.
Yeah.
Okay, that'd be terrific, thanks. And then lastly on my list is the true height. What is the true height of the gym ceiling? It doesn't have to, I don't need an answer this second, but just, again.
I thought at the last meeting, he said it was actually, as measured, it was 9 feet per the drawing, rather than the drawing showing.
Rather than Yeah.
9 feet.
Solution would be to excavate a portion within that basement to create a higher ceiling where that equipment, where equipment that needs a higher ceiling could be used. And so I thought that the hybrid was sort of the plan going forward. I mean, that was my assumption.
Fine, we're gonna discuss it, we're gonna look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Brian was gonna look at that.
Again, I just didn't want that to get lost in the discussion somewhere.
Very valid for you to bring it up, Paul.
Thank you.
Is there any other general business that needs to be discussed? As far as new business is concerned, the next steps, we already made the decision on meetings. We made a decision on how we're going to proceed in hiring a construction manager. And I think those are our biggies, and some steps as far as the work that's still being done, looking for a police training facility and a more accurate accounting of issues involving the extra cars and vehicles at the police station in consideration of parking issues that we want to make sure we're doing everything possible to.
And Leon's got that.
And Leon's got that. All right.
Oh,
That's
I
fine.
guess the other thing is, do we want to reach out to the other neighbors of the project at this point?
I've talked to,
Okay,
I've had informal conversations.
So-
And
Once we start the permitting process, we'll know exactly what we need to do for special permit, and there'll be notifications that'll go out. That go out to all the neighbors, but we can reach out to them in advance of that. Once the site-
Yes. So I've spoken, the nursery school has gotten back to me yet. I've certainly spoken to the cottage.
Okay.
And I've spoken to the senior living. And gave them my phone number and things like that.
It doesn't hurt to do it again. The last thing we want is
No surprises.
no surprise.
Yeah, do we want to invite them just to a quick meeting to say, just to show you that this preliminarily what we're looking at?
I think that's a great idea, but once we have more to show,
Throw one on first, there's only 3 of them.
Right,
yes, we want one.
Either way, it's not hard.
I think, but I think this is important. Good neighbors.
I mean, if there's any design thing, they say we need another stairway here, or we need something like that, we might as well get that information to Brian.
Sooner rather than later.
Right.
And, yeah, the last thing we want is, a letter to the newspaper says, boy, I can't believe you guys are going to do all this and don't install us. So,
That's the key thing.
yeah,
Right.
we want them to be, involved. I think we've done a good job with the EMTs, and I think Tom Turrentine, thank you, has done a great job of, staying involved with us, and that's much appreciated. Like I said, I talked to 2 of the groups, theirs just wasn't got back, but that's a good thing to do, is reach out one more time to the nursery school.
And I'm sorry, the 2 groups that you've talked to, have you actually showed, have we showed them any?
No, strictly a phone conversation, letting them know about construction timing, and basically say, any questions,
Okay,
give me a holler, but I haven't shared any drawings with them.
Oh, the nursery school, the kids will love it. I mean, there's, no, really, I mean, that could be like the coolest thing for them.
We've actually done this 2 times in the last 15, 20 years, but once when the police department was updated in around 2007, and then when the EMS building was built a year or 2 later. So this is about a new thing to any of those 3 groups.
Yeah,
great.
and heck with the nursery school, I love watching the bulldozers work personally, so, Joe, is there anything else?
No.
So our next meeting will be on the calendar for January 13th. But there will be a
January 12th.
Oh, you're right. That's sorry. Thank you. Right. January 12th. And well, the construction manager group will be before that. Or is that?
I think the construction manager group will be probably,
this month.
yeah, the
Yeah.
next few days.
Yeah. Yeah, and to be clear, the construction manager group was Paul Tully, Bill Walbert, Joe, Jim,
Yeah.
okay?
Hey, Bill, I gotta jump off. I'm sorry. I got, thank you.
Take care.
Hey, Joe, one question, Bill, Joe, from a communication standpoint, what's the best way for me to share information? Is it to go through you, Joe, first, and then you disseminate, or do you want me to do a master list?
Let's start that way.
Send it to you
If
first?
that becomes problematic, we'll change the process.
Okay, okay.
All right, so we have,
All right.
I think we're good right now. All right, Jim, anything else?
No.
Bill, you'll pull together the list of meeting dates and get those circulated to us, just so we're all sure to be on the same page.
Second and fourth Thursday mornings of the month, going forward.
I'll put together a calendar and send it out, and I'll address any conflicts, assuming there'll be a couple conflicts with holidays or whatnot.
Yeah,
All right, in this case, I approve we adjourn.
all right.
Second.
Second. All right, guys, thanks so much.
All right.
Thank
Hey,
you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
Bye.
Thanks, Bill.
So,
Stop recording.
That means the next meeting, I gotta get on.
I'm around in December, which I'm actually heading out right now, but I'll be back most of the time. So I'm pretty much